The Weddings by Annabel podcast. This is the whys, not just the whats, behind weddings. Based in the UK's Cumbria and the Lake District, me and others invite you to join a conversation about the highs and lows, the delights and the concerns faced by anyone planning a wedding. Hello, and welcome to, this is episode 7, and I'm here with Lindsey.
Hello.
And we thought, instead of just sitting here actually chatting about the topic, we should actually start recording, because we've talked a lot about this already.
Well, it's a massive subject, isn't it?
Yes. So this time our focus is on venue, which when we first started going through the notes of this is such a giant topic and so detailed.
It's going to really take some pulling apart.
Yeah. So we've decided, actually, for this episode, what we're going to do is tackle some top questions. So things that we've been asked before that are most common about venues in general. I think that's much easier than trying to dissect a huge topic that covers so many parts of a wedding.
And I think then future podcast episodes can then really go into detail on the specifics.
Yes, one day we will talk even more, and then even more, and then even more.
We quite like that.
Yeah, and there's so much to cover. So I'm going to start off.
Go for it.
First question that is on the list is, when do you start looking for a venue?
I think some people will possibly already know which venue they really want to get married in before they've even got engaged.
They've already penciled in a date before the question's been popped. Yeah. I think in general, if you do it the traditional way, then start looking at just as soon as possible. I mean, not only is it fun to look around a load of different venues, but taking that chance to really explore what you like, and it's fun. Like, I like going to venues. It's nice. It's a nice day out. If though you've had the question asked, you've said yes, you're all jolly, and you're getting really keen to go and have a look around this massive array of different venues, I think episode 4 of the podcast, we talked about where to begin. And it's just remembering, go back to that list and sit down with your partner and go, what are our priorities? What are you not bothered about? What's your guest numbers? So ideal list anyway. And what's your budget? Because once you've done those, then you start looking. And
there'll be elements in there that it doesn't really matter. For some people, there'll be those elements. Budget might not be a thing. Yeah. And therefore it doesn't matter what venue you're looking at. Yeah. And also, venues can cover TPs and marquees, and therefore there might be ground rent to pay or not if you've got somewhere that you can use. But I did have a friend speak to me once, and they said, we're going to get married. We're getting married on August bank holiday weekend next year. And I said, oh my God, that's fantastic. Wow, amazing. So you've booked something then? Oh, no, haven't booked anything. So if you know when you want to get married, then you need to sort it out ASAP.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's why setting those priorities are massive. If I definitely want a summer wedding. Like, most of the guests are teachers. Right, okay, so you've written out loads of dates there
already.
And
loads of children, if there's loads of families in the party.
Or we definitely want to get married abroad. Right, well, what are the certain months that can happen? Or, okay, you want this certain venue, but it's really expensive and your budget won't allow for it. Don't look then. Think about your budget. So, I think the priorities, your guest numbers and your budget have to come first. But then when you do start looking, it's so much fun. Like, enjoy it. We were talking like like when you go dress shopping, try them all on. You don't know. You probably
think you want one kind.
Yeah. When I was looking, I found this gorgeous dress, and it was so much money. And I think they only retailed it in one place in the UK. So not even near me. But I had this one picture torn out of a magazine, and I absolutely loved it. And I tried on something similar, did not suit me at all. I was like, well, thank God I can't get it, because this is not me at all. But I did enjoy just trying on anything.
Yeah.
I tried on a dress that
being
was like...
open to it.
Yeah. I tried on one dress that I swear I should have come with reversing lights. It was absolutely massive. But it's fun. And I think wedding venues, it can be the same thing. Walking around old places, new places, fields, marquee open days, you name it. Go and explore, because I bet there's a lot out there that you've never even considered.
Oh, yeah. I think especially in Cumbria and the Lake District, there's so many different options now in comparison to when I was getting married. The options are endless.
Yeah. So get out there. When to start? Now.
Yeah.
Do it and enjoy it and have fun. And make a note of what you like, what you don't, and have in mind what your priorities are.
I think for some people, if they're coming from away, so maybe abroad or down south, and they're specifically thinking of Cumbria or specifically the Lake District, then they might need more information than go and have a lovely explore. But I suppose that's where all the next questions come in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when people start looking for wedding venues, I think something that's going to come up is, first and foremost, is why are wedding venues so expensive?
Yeah.
Everybody will say, blooming weddings, they cost a fortune. And yeah, that's a big thing for venues. That they are expensive, but what's your experience with that one, Annabel?
They are expensive, and I think unless you have worked in either hospitalities, venue management or property, it's really difficult to comprehend the cost behind it that you can't see. So there's intangible costs. There's things that have to be maintained and managed when you're not there, or when behind the scenes.
Massively. That
I think, bearing that in mind, that also weddings come with high expectations. There's only one day to get it right. There is not, we can't repeat this and do it better next time. So the training, the prep, the admin that goes on behind the scenes for every venue.
So time consuming.
It's massive.
I mean, even down to things like gardening. So knowing from places where I've been where they'll be planting the spring bulbs in autumn time, so that in spring, if you've chosen to have your wedding in spring, that doorway looks perfect. And it's because the gardener put the effort in autumn, just bits and pieces like that. Absolutely massive.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because I like gardening, and
that's what it
just
is.
Totally hit on a sweet spot for me.
We also like looking at the photographs of, look, and they've got
pretty.
Nice planting, and they considered that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's, it can get very expensive. It all depends on the type of venue you're picking anyway. But I think bearing in mind that there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and also if a place has got high demand, it means that they can charge a lot of money. This is, how they build the business. This is how they,
of course,
can grow it.
Because they can.
Yeah.
If so many people want to get married there, why would you not add an extra £100 on or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's brutal, but that's business.
But it shows that they're doing something right.
Yes.
Because people will pay that to be in that venue, because they've done something that people will pay that. They value it at that price. So yes, it is expensive, but that's okay, because people are paying it.
Yeah.
And as long as they keep paying it, the price is not going to change.
Of course, something that a wedding venue in comparison to any other venue that doesn't necessarily do weddings specifically has to comprehend is the license fee.
Yes.
And so that is just another little thing that people won't even consider. There are other elements to think about. Weddings are so much more complicated and involve so many more members of teams that they have to charge more because it's not just a normal meal. We were talking about the difference between booking a meal and having a wedding. There's so much more to it.
Yeah. Licenses is a big one. The amount of tick boxes involved and paperwork and things that you don't even understand the necessary paperwork that is required just to allow weddings to happen. Like, it's even just that side of it is very complicated. So why is it so expensive? Because there's a lot to do. In general. Okay, next one I've got on the list is, what is a DIY venue? And this is funny because my husband, when I say I look after DIY venues, he'll always say, that sounds weird.
Well, I always feel like it sounds really amateur, like really basic, because people take the mickey out of DIY. People who do DIY don't pay professional people. You know, so therefore I think the terminology DIY wedding venue gets a really bad rep. But how else can you describe a DIY wedding venue? So you tell us what a DIY wedding venue actually means.
So from my point of view, it is basically hiring a space. So it might not be this completely empty, but it is classed as a dry hire.
A shell.
Yeah. Here is a space. Do with it as you wish.
Within these parameters.
Yeah, read the T's and C's.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of freedom with it. That's the difference. So there's a lot of the non-DIY venues, they have tight packages to adhere to, because they've got other things going on in that venue, possibly at the same time, that they have to respect. So a hotel that's got other hotel guests, or is running a restaurant, or is running a spa, the wedding has to fit in with the team, with the space, with everything else. And they want to be able to manage that smoothly. So a package is put together, and it's good because it has its place. You know, not everybody wants a DIY venue, so it's good that they're out there. A DIYer, I think a kind of extra question to this is, a lot of people say, is it going to be more difficult? Yes. Yeah, it is. You're doing it yourself. Yes. It is more difficult. The bonuses is that you then have so much influence.
And flexibility.
Yeah. It's not, I wouldn't say that DIYers are always cheaper, because again, it's down to your style and what you want. But that flexibility is great.
But potentially it could be, because you could be getting married in a village hall.
Yeah.
And so you've got the flexibility to do what you want there. You might ask everybody to bring, do a food share. So everybody brings something. You can bring coleslaw, I'll bring potato salad, that sort of thing. And it then really does become a lot cheaper. Because it's a DIY space. You get to do what you want. But you've got other DIY. I mean, all of your venues are DIY that you manage. Are DIY venues, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, so Barn in the Fells, Ambleside, massive. Big open spaces. So it can fit 180 people.
Massive.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a big wedding.
Yeah. And there's certain bits that as a venue grows, you start like, now we have benches in the ceremony room. Great. We're putting more furniture outside. We've got festoon lighting now. It's all been built from demand. So things that we know consistently are being asked for as part of the venue. But there's so much other things that can vary. Do you want round tables or long tables? Well, we're not going to hire those in for you.
So you get to choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want fairy lights or festoon lights? You don't want to set that, because you want that flexibility there. And then, oh my God, the completely different to Barn in the Fells is Rydal Mount, which is just up the road, Rydal Valley. This is an ancient historic home. It can fit maybe 50 people for a ceremony inside. Beautiful rolling gardens everywhere. But it's got lots and lots of potential. But the DIY element is very different.
And I think internally there, let's say the word restricted, you're restricted by the decoration, by the furniture that is already there, although some of that could be moved. But you're restricted in a good way, because you're looking at the decoration and going, oh, okay, so it's a historical house.
Yeah.
Of Wordsworth.
Yeah.
And therefore, let's work with that. So it's still DIY, but this is what we've got to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the joy for me for DIY venues. They're all very different. They all have different aspects to them, but they are all going to suit a different style celebration. You know, we've got Allen Bank, the National Trust property, that is really quirky. You know, massive artwork on the walls and big empty spaces. That suits somebody who their version of DIY is complete freedom. You know, we don't need any help with this. Actually, this is fun.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, they want that completely informal, chilled vibe to it.
Equally, though, another historical place, so the National Trust have that one, don't they? But you've got a lovely, quaint lounge area in there. So whilst it is a DIY space and you can do what you want with it, and you've got big empty areas, you've also got lovely quaint areas too that don't necessarily need loads doing to them. So I think really looking at all these different spaces, it all comes down to what kind of thing are you looking for. Yeah,
which is why setting those priorities from the off is massive. Looking at who you are and what you need from a venue first.
I mean, some people are so busy that they don't want to do anything to do with DIY spaces.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at a hotel that does it all. You get married there, you have your wedding breakfast there, you party there.
Yeah.
They give you the select menus that you can choose from, and you say how many people, and that's it, done.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's not for everyone.
No, exactly. There's always something for everybody, you know, especially knowing Cumbria so well. I mean, oh my Lord, there's so many venues. If you just hit Google looking for a wedding venue, that list is so overwhelming. I mean, it's just nuts. So starting with the priorities, starting with your budget, starting with the amount of people, even for a DIYer, that list gets narrowed down straight away. With loads more. Well, it's productive with your time.
I mean, if you look at a website like Hitched, for example, they have filters for a reason. So you can go onto something like that and put your filters in. But I think our argument is that actually there's lots of different ways of looking at it before you start messing around with filters, because some venues are really flexible with various elements to it, like numbers. On Hitched, for example, one wedding venue might say 150, but if you actually communicated with them, they might say, oh yeah, but we do weddings of 50 people and we use this space here.
Yeah.
So if you're using a search engine, it's not that straightforward.
Yeah.
So don't just discount a venue. You might see a venue that you really like and it might look like it's for 150 people, or vice versa. So for example, Rydal Mount, on paper it might look like it's a very small venue because it is, but then throw a marquee or a teepee in the garden and you've hit all bases there. You've got the beautiful quaint house and the history from Wordsworth, but then you've also got a gorgeous glamorous marquee or a quirky teepee in the garden with a view out to the lake. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's like the other one, Hunthow. That doesn't come up if you search for a wedding licence.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you can't have a celebrant or get married before or after in a registry office, or there's a beautiful church nearby. There are still options. So even though that search, like you say, is cut it down, it might have just got rid of a place, even though everything else is great. It's better to talk to the people involved. Because if it's ticking loads of those other priorities in there, you never know. It might sway you. It might be like, actually, this is worth this one thing flexing. So yeah. So DIYs, God, I'll tell you what, DIY venues, we could talk about those all day.
And I think we will talk about all the different areas. So catering, Ceremonies is a massive one, isn't it? I know you've got big plans to talk about that in the future as well. But one thing I need to ask you is about negotiating. So that comes up as a really big question for people. I really like the idea of getting married here, but it does look really expensive. Is there room for negotiation? Can we negotiate on this one?
I mean, the good thing is that a lot of venues these days will have, they'll negotiate for their down season or down times. So midweekers, winter seasons, there will be a variation of prices out there anyway. So like say, when we're talking about search engines, they might show the maximum price. Yeah. Or even worse, when they've got prices from. Yeah. And you're like, wow, that bottom price is normally not very realistic at all.
It's February on a Tuesday.
Yeah, with 2 guests.
Yeah. And I don't mean food. Valentine's Day either.
No food, no drink. Yeah. Just show up, say I do, and away you go. Yeah. So there is always room to have a conversation. And I think, and this isn't just for venues, this is for all suppliers. If you don't ask, you don't know. And it's better, like I say, you've set your budget, you've set your priorities. If you turn around to a venue and said, this is what we'd like and this is how much we've got to spend, can we do this? It means you're stopping all of that email ping pong, what if we take out this, what if we add in that? You're just getting right down to the point of it. Can you do this or not? And never be... I say to clients all the time, don't be worried that you're giving too much away. Because at the end of the day, they either can do it or they can't. And they always want to do a good event. I think that's what people think, oh no, we can't tell them how much we're going to spend because they might take the mick. No, because they have to do a good job. Otherwise, they'll never do any more weddings. There's too many people involved that will pick up on that. And in this industry, you have to do a good job or you're out. So don't be worried about putting it out there, asking the question, be open about it. Because the amount of people that you might be sending those emails out to, going for tours, asking for questions, asking for brochures, all of that, you may as well reduce that admin behind it. Go, can you do it? I love your place because it's ticking off all these major priorities for me. Can you do it? If you don't ask, you don't get.
Absolutely. I think in my experience of venues, people would ask all of the time, and I think it largely depends from a sales perspective, because that's my experience from a sales perspective, where you are with your bookings as to how open you are. It's like anything, when you buy anything from anywhere, is it the January sales in Marks and Spencer's? It depends where that venue or that company or that supplier is with their bookings as to whether they are panicking and need to get more bookings in for that point in time for their bookings. So, like you say, if you don't know, you don't get. Yeah. It's always worth a shot. But if places are saying, I'm sorry, there really is nothing we can do, you can see the out of season pricing, you can see our Wednesday pricing, whatever it may be. If there's nothing else they can do, it's because they're probably a really great venue. Yeah. And so again, it comes down to, do you really want that venue, or do you really need to prioritise your budget and therefore you've got to go somewhere else? But it might be that you say, no, I really want that venue. We're going to borrow money from another aspect of our wedding budget to allow us to have that venue, because don't 10 years down the line go, we shouldn't have had that venue, we should have gone for the one we wanted.
Yeah, you don't want to regret it.
Because you don't want any regrets.
It could just be.
It's so important. The venue's so important.
Oh, massive.
It leads on to all of the other aspects. Yeah. And you've talked about this in blog posts and in social posts, choose your venue. That then determines what the colour scheme might be, what the flowers might be, what your entertainment might be.
Oh, it's everything.
Oh, it just goes on and on. So yeah, it's got to be chosen really carefully.
Yeah. Oh, it might be. I've had clients who their budget relies on how much they can save. So it might be, if you really want that venue, right, we'll look at the year after. Give yourself another year of saving some money up. If that's where your priority sits, is to get that venue, then figure a way around it. It's problem solving at that point, isn't it? Yeah.
Equally, you also might get to your future and look back and go, I wish we hadn't spent that extra £5,000 just to have that venue. We could have gone to this other venue, had a lovely day and spent that extra £5,000 on the live band, the canapes, I don't know, you know, whatever it might be, because...
Well, at the end of the day, none of this is a small amount of money. So making sure you've actually picked the right thing for any part of the wedding is huge. But yeah, venue is definitely, whatever the investment is into that, my God, it's the most influential part of the day. But the entire process, definitely. You know, the thing I refer back to is my wedding tree. So the roots of the engagement, tick, done, asked the question, said yes. The trunk of the tree is the venue. Because all of those other big decisions that come off, all those branches, all rely on the trunk. So I'm a visual learner. I like a tree.
And if you are also a visual learner, you can head over to Annabel's website where you can see the tree. You can see this tree that she's talking about.
I finally put it on the website. Yeah. Okay, so another one of the questions that comes up a lot is, where can you get married? Because like the actual...
the legalities we're talking about here,
unless you've been through the process or you work in the industry, you don't really know what your limitations are, right? Like I can see how, I remember it being a bit of a minefield. Like, I don't understand what makes a legal marriage. I don't know what I'm allowed to do and where. There was a lot of queries in general around that.
Yeah.
Which is why I think we'll have to come back to it.
Definitely.
Just for the ceremony side of it. So this is the legal part, potentially.
Yeah. This is definitely another episode.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've done so many different variations.
It's a little bit controversial as well, because we've got registrars and we've got celebrants.
Yeah.
And there is a place for both of them, but ultimately they both want sales. Let's call it sales. They both want bookings.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to get somebody from elsewhere to be able to say these are all, you know, somebody on the fence saying these are all of your options.
Yes.
How's it going to work best for you?
Yeah. So the question of where, if we were to summarise it, is realistically anywhere, but with each option comes its own rules or hurdles to jump. So where, if you want to do the legal part of your marriage in a venue, that venue has to be licensed. If you want to go to a church, great. Speak to the people involved with the church, wardens, vicars, whoever's involved. If you want to get married, which I've actually got a client who's getting married on top of a fell soon. If you want to do that, okay, you need to speak to the landowners. You need to speak to whoever's land that is first. Logistically, it's difficult anyway. So there's one thing saying where, there's another thing saying how, with all that side of things. So there's licensed venues, easy peasy, registrars come in, easy. There's churches, easy peasy, that's where it started. Then there's the random places. They're not licensed, they're not a church. This is where celebrants come in brilliantly. They will hold a ceremony, host it for you, with all the key parts that you want in there, loads of flexibility, wherever you like, or where you're allowed to use. And then the legal part can be done either before or after. So that's where you go to either a licensed venue or a registry office. So where is... the options are endless, as long as you've actually thought through the restrictions or the rules or the logistics behind it.
So the question, can you get married in any venue? It's not a straightforward question, because it should be, can you legally get married in any venue? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Can you have a wedding ceremony in any venue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that question isn't straightforward at all, is it?
No, none of this is.
No.
One question leads to 7 more.
If it was,
welcome to the wedding industry.
Be doing a podcast.
Be done and dusted. I mean, my job would become a bit obsolete if it was that easy, right? Okay. What's the next one? What
do I need to think about when you visit a venue? Okay, so thinking about things in advance of venues, and you've nailed it and you've got it right down to, say, 5 venues, and you're going to go this weekend and you're going to have a good look round.
Yeah.
What are the things that you think people should be looking at when they're there on the day, looking around? What are they asking? What are they looking for and what are they asking?
Yeah. I think it's always fascinating because the reason why you've chosen a venue to go and look round is because you've already seen so much information. You've seen what they've put out there. Brochure, Instagram, Facebook, all of those. There's so much that you've taken in on a very 2D, very, it's information. It's not the mood.
And energy.
The feeling.
Yeah.
There's none of that. So bearing in mind that is going to be massively influential to how your day feels, I think that is the great thing about a visit. Go and see. I think it's like buying a house. You know, you look around certain places and as soon as you walk through the front door, you're like, this is either me or it's not. And you look around anyway because you want to have a nosy. But realistically, you'll know, is this us or not?
I think it's quite difficult now because of social media just generally. Excuse me, sorry. We're all heavily influenced by our social media accounts that we follow. And so you might be following this beautiful, you might have got engaged, or even before getting engaged, you're following this beautiful venue or beautiful florist, supplier, whatever they may be. And you're influenced by that without you even realising, and it's tapping into your subconscious.
Yeah.
And you're going, yeah, I want to get married there. Yeah, it looks really beautiful. But really, you need to you need to really try hard to separate out your preconceptions because you might be massively disappointed.
Yeah.
Or the opposite, you might find a small-time venue that has a terrible Instagram account with with 200 people following it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not a brilliant venue for you.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want a venue that's got thousands of followers that's going to post your wedding? Or do you want to have a lovely wedding day?
Yeah. And again, that comes back to the priorities behind it, doesn't it? What are you most fussed about? So, funnily enough, I do have a blog post about this.
Bing!
Boo! I'll put the link in the description. But thing that there's some odd little things that I've noted in there that when I've gone to look around venues, either as myself, kind of, on a consultancy side of things, or with clients, or showing people around the venues that I look after. There's little things like beyond the usual, the staff, the decor, the general cleanliness and stuff. There's other little bits that I think give a really good sign.
Indication, yeah.
Yeah. So I've put the meet and greet. There's nothing that makes me cringe more than when you arrive at a venue, there is nobody there to go, hi. Even if they're not the people showing you round, somebody there to go, hi, can I help? Because that awkwardness of walking into a place and not knowing what I'm doing.
And that could be really different in different spaces, couldn't it? So
yeah.
If you're going to a barn in the middle of nowhere where, it's not a hotel, it's not a holiday property, it's nothing, it's just a barn.
Yeah.
Potentially you're rocking up on a wet, cold, windy day and there's nobody there. You need to sort of, and they were about to arrive as well. Then you need to sort of give those venues the benefit of the doubt. But if it's a hotel,
high expectations,
then absolutely should be a good meet or greet.
Yeah.
There's no excuses.
And I think, so next bit on the list is how the staff talk to each other. When selecting people like bar staff and caterers, especially because they're there on the day, I'm always saying, I want to know that the staff get on. That influence on you, on that atmosphere of the day, will be affected by people. And that's not just guests. That's loads of other people as well. Then weird little one. Cleanliness of the loos. Sounds random, doesn't it? But you know what I mean?
Well, I suppose it's a bit like an Ofsted inspection in that when Ofsted land at a school to inspect a school, the school have a really good idea as to when they're going to arrive. So they're prepped and ready.
Yeah.
And so for a wedding day, it should be prepped and ready. But when you're arriving to look around, it's not necessarily going to be prepped and ready. Or it might be the opposite. They might be super prepped and ready because they're trying to sell a wedding. And therefore on a wedding day, it might not be as good. So I think it's just a really good indication generally.
What are they fussed about?
Yeah. What are they thinking?
Yeah. Plant to weed ratio. Go back to gardening.
Yeah.
It does make a difference though. If you've got guests, if especially venues where the garden is the big selling point.
Yeah.
You know, that and the thing is, it's not that I don't mind a few weeds and whatever, but if it looks like nobody cares, that's not cool. Because what else do they not care about?
Or cigarette ends. That's one thing for me.
Like these things. These, you know, most of the time you're spending a lot of money on these places, so I want to know that you care. Do you, as a venue, care what this looks like? And all these things, the loos, the weeds, all of those things are alarm bells if this can't be looked after. What else is slipping through? You know, am I going to find dirty sheets in the rooms? You know, on the wedding day, is that going to be gross?
Or is a member of staff going to be miserable on my wedding day? That sort of
These
thing.
are nice little clues, aren't they?
Yeah, to give you a good feel of the place.
Yeah. And again, that flex, is there flex on what spaces we're allowed to use, what furniture we're allowed to use? Test them. You know, is there anything here that can be removed or brought in? Going down to the nitty-gritty of what actually you get, that level of flexibility, I think, shows a level of trust from the venue, and it gives you a good feel for how that communication's going to go from that point on.
Yeah, because you're involved with these people for potentially quite a long time.
Yeah.
And so, trying to get a really good conversation with them to assess all of those kind of things, because you're building up a relationship with them and you've got to work with them. It's got to be right.
Yeah.
It really isn't just about the bricks and mortar. It has to be about the people that you're going to be working with as well. It's massive.
Yeah, people are everything.
And we were talking before this about, so obviously right now we're thinking about what people are going to have to ask and notice when they go to wedding venues. So it's about spotting what you've got and then saying, are there any other plans to change anything between now and when I've got my wedding booked, or when I think I might book my wedding?
Yeah.
Because if they are planning on doing major groundworks over the time when you're getting booked, when you've booked, you need to know that, because it could dramatically affect your wedding. But equally, it could be that you book your wedding and you know that there are 10 rooms, and then by the time it comes to your wedding, they've done another 5, which could be amazing for your wedding and your wedding party. Yeah. So asking that question, are there any plans for changes, I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Like Hunthow are now putting in a cottage building.
Fantastic.
So it can sleep like 4 more people.
Amazing.
I know. And they've redone all of the pond and put a waterfall in there and a big patch of land to put a tent on.
Yeah, so if you don't ask, you're not going to necessarily find out about these things.
Yeah, but never presume either. Don't presume that everything's going to stay the same. Ask the question, definitely.
Yeah, I think wedding venues have to keep up with the trends. They're always looking for the best photo opportunities for their couples. And so therefore they're always thinking, what can we change and what can we adapt to be better, to continue to get the bookings. Just because a wedding venue is super popular now doesn't mean that it's going to be in 5 years' time.
Yeah. That's it on my list. And I think, you know what, we've done well to get through those. I mean, this list is so massive. The whole topic is flipping huge. So I think coming back to these, we're talking about ceremony, dining, the party, all these parts that the venue is a huge influence in, but actually this is going to we'd be here for hours.
Yeah.
So we'll dissect that bit by bit, but I hope that at least going through these key questions that we hear all the time, it's giving you a good understanding of the world of wedding venues from the get-go.
And planted some seeds. Hopefully there's some little nuggets there of little bits where you hadn't necessarily thought, I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, I'll have a think about that.
In general, from any podcast, if you can come away with one thing that's brilliant, then great.
And I think we take it all for granted because you've worked in lots of venues and I've worked in 2 venues. So I've got it from the sales perspective. You've got it much more from the customer's perspective.
Yeah.
So we take it all for granted. We take it for granted, the kind of things that you're looking for. But hopefully you guys out there that are listening will have taken something from this.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Linz.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks to listening to episode 7 of the Weddings by Annabel podcast. The next episode will all be about wedmin, which is a cute little term that is basically all of the admin that goes behind planning a wedding. I know, it sounds boring. I promise I'll try not to make it sound too boring. It won't be too long. Just some helpful tips on how to organise your brain, how to get everything down, make sure that you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. Okay. Speak soon. Bye. If you would like some further advice or help or more information on Weddings by Annabel, or would like to be involved in the podcast, then email us via the website weddingsbyannabel.co.uk or find us on Instagram, Facebook or LinkedIn. Okay, bye.